Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, my leaders. How are you doing this wonderful morning? I hope that, this morning greets you well and that you are ready to dig in to some more leadership nuggets that are happening this morning. So, every Tuesday morning, I come before you to kind of share different things on what it takes to leveling up your career and how it is that if you are having any challenges in the areas that are shared, how it is that I can be of support as a leadership strategist. But as I welcome you into the space from all of the networks that are joining us, before you make any decision, make sure you have a cup of coffee or tea. So let me get my sip of coffee and get us jumped in and get started this morning. And so um, I utilize a GPS to kind of navigate a GPS that is an acronym or metaphor for me that I use to help people move from the positioning that they're in and move from being passed over to promoted and well paid throughout the journey of wherever the GPS unveils the blind spots and the barriers. You will come to learn or come to identify what are those things that have positioned you in a different way than what you have intention, and so that you are able to level up, working side by side with me in the program, that you would be able to level up unapologetically and with conviction to be in your space appropriately. And so for this week's conversation, it was brought to me by a leader, and they were like, "Okay, Mary, I'm having some challenges and I really don't understand what they are, but every time I go um into the conference room, I get frozen or something happens to me, and what I've prepared is not what's conveyed throughout the conversation. Or can you help me understand where this anxiety stuff is coming from?" So, as leaders in general, we are big thinkers and problem solvers. So sometimes, us being a big thinker who solves problems, sometimes we get into our way and get away from like what it is that we really want to do and focus when we are working and striving towards creating a life that we want and living on our terms. And so throughout the journey of recognizing, things that you find that may be barriers or challenges or things that's, seems to be getting in the way or showing up at a time that you want to be on point, are sometimes the nuggets that kind of show up every single time, and in places where you like, okay, wait, not right now or not today. How can it show up like in a different way, or how can I reshift this and understand what is happening? So you're a leader, you're super excited, and you have secured like an interim role as executive director, assistant director, program manager, or you probably recently have gotten a certificate and or your degree that you have been striving for so long. And so of course all these big thinking ideas are coming to play. Good morning, Tierra. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So all of these ideas are coming into play, as well as you may have been invited to like a networking meeting or to share your idea and share your thoughts. So it's like, how do you get from that big thinking, problem solving to being productive and how it is that you show up for work? So this week I had decided, good morning, Stephanie. Thank you for joining as well. This morning I wanted to convey a response as well as support to the individual who reached out to me. But then as I was thinking, I was like, this is truly like a nugget at that, people sometimes overlook on what paralyzes them when they're supposed to be on, or what pauses them when they are supposed to be, like, at their most optimal thing. Whether it's an interim position or it's a permanent position, you have been invited to show up. You have been invited to exist in this space the way that you have invited your voice, or you have showed your skills and demonstrated your ability. But sometimes that personal reflection, that personal open-ended inventory gets scary and gets a little uncomfortable. So the way that I've entitled today's conversation is leading the membership prep, like your prep for the meeting. And then somehow you get shifted into like an anxiety moment, or something in your energy, your mind ends up shifting to where you're not able to focus on, or you're over focusing. Because remember, in the framework, you're a big thinker. You have already seen the outcome, but sometimes we don't engineer some of the little bitty pieces that help us to break that glass ceiling. So then now you have told your mind that you are uncomfortable in some particular way. And so therefore your mind is giving you what you have asked it to give you. And you have asked it to give you chaos and disorganization. And you're like, well, why would I do that? Why would I tell it to give me, or make me chaotic, make me disorganized, make me, not perform the way that I want to perform, because I want the outcome to be so great. And what occurs in those moments is that you have a vision for yourself that's perfect. You have a vision for yourself that identifies that the way that you facilitate in this meeting, the way that you deliver whatever it is you need to deliver, has to be perfect. And so, with thinking about how you want it to be perfect, you're automatically welcoming yourself into the playground of anxiety. Because the performance, yes, you want to do right. Don't hear me say that you don't want it to be a good job, or that you don't want it to be understood, that you know what it is that you know, and that you are successful at doing so. But you want to be able to be clear on what it is that you should be delivering, and how perfectionism is putting you at pause, where sometimes people can call it like the lizard brain, where you're going back this side. Should I go that way? Should I consider it this way? What is it that is important to you to make sure that you get conveyed out? And you don't need to second guess yourself. However, let's kind of take a moment to think about, where does that idea, that the energy that you invite in, says that when you get to the conference room, when you get to the performance stage, when you get to an important phone call or interview, it has to be perfect. Remember when you were younger and you had a performance? It could have been a big game, it could have been a project, it could have been a presentation of some sort, and you were preparing for that, just as you're preparing for things in your adult life and in your adult relationship, with work. Who was encouraging you? What was encouraging you? What was driving, and how it was that you celebrate the moments of preparing for, well, one, getting the opportunity to be invited into a room where you can network. You're like, oh my God, who's going to be in the room? Who do I need to talk to? How can I connect and make sure that I get everything that I need? But then also, if they've handed over the torch to say, you are qualified to do this position, and if you do this position in this temporary, interim, or even permanent promoted state, can you sustain on the other side? The dance that you have with understanding the shift from the position that you were in prior to securing the position that you desired and deserved and was prepared for, because you were working in your ambition level and higher, creates the perfectionism. It creates, how did you celebrate yourself when you successfully did that big game when you were younger, or you had a performance or something that you prepared for, you did it unapologetically, but there may be some experiences or residue that was either positive and or challenging. And whatever that is, it fuels and recreates every single time that you go to show up for yourself in the most optimal way as a leader. And you're questioning, you're second guessing, you have fears that you're not going to be right. All of these are conversations with the playground of anxiety. So whatever it is that creates that space that has you thinking from a chaotic standpoint, you begin to freeze up. Like, for you, like, okay, why am I freezing up? I know what I know. I know my information. What is it that makes me so uncomfortable? Is it possible that you are holding up a mirror, comparing yourself to the individuals in the room and thinking that they are at a higher level than you when you have been invited to be the expert voice coming into that conference room? So as you are entering into the conference room, are you having a dual conversation as you're greeting, as you are commanding the attention of the room, as you are standing in your space of excellence? Are you also having chaos in your mind and in your brain that is telling you that you need to freeze, that you are not prepared for this, or you didn't consider that, or is it going to be perfect? Oh my God, technology is not working in my favor. We all know about technology not necessarily working in your favor, or not connecting because your equipment may be different than the others, or just something. All of those things don't really, they matter, but they don't necessarily shape the qualifications that's going to come from the delivery of what it is that you have to offer in that conversation. So when you think about what it is that you have to offer in the conversation, and in the ability to knowing that you have the capacity to level up, perfectionism should not be a part of that playground conversation. When you enter into the conference room, or when you enter into your major game, you got to think about what is it that's fueling you to push you moving forward. Because you can command the attention, you have the operative like words to have this vision that's very, very perfect. However, you cannot expect that there's not going to be anything. So a question that just came through. So we create chaos in our mind. We do. We create chaos in our mind, in the senses that we begin to second guess how we've prepared. You've prepared for the meeting. You've prepared for this leveling up experience. You have prepared for the opportunity that says that you can be in this room, and people have seen your skill set and says, I want this person. I want her. I want this project to be ran or done by XYZ. But then when you get into this space, there's residue that makes you fear the opportunity. It makes you fear the thoughts and thinking, okay, am I good enough for this experience, or qualified to be in this conversation? Do I have the certificates? Do I have the credentials? You just secured everything that you needed. But in your mind, in your heart, your chest is tightening up, your hands may be getting sweaty, you tend to freeze. And so when you're thinking about how it is that you enter into the conference room, you have to begin to learn how to read the room and be willing to shed what is not serving you. And because all of that stuff that you prepared for is what people are there to see. They're not there to see they understand that you might be uncomfortable or even nervous. That's healthy. But when anxiety has a grip on you, then it ends up having the power and the influence to begin to distract you from what you have rehearsed, what you have prepared, and ultimately showing that you may not be ready for, if it's an interim position or if it's a thought process. We all never want to talk about Good morning. We never want to talk about like the mindset that we need when we're leveling up, or what is the things we need in our toolkit when we're leveling up. Being able to strategize and understand how you live through this experience, things that are going to distract you are always waiting. So that's what I mean when you're reprogramming your brain or reprogramming how it is that the chaos shows up. The chaos shows up the moment that you doubt. Chaos shows up the moment that you give free reign for the opportunity of the experience that you question, am I supposed to be here? You're at your ambition level and higher. Why wouldn't you be the person that's supposed to be there? And so if you're questioning that daily, you're also letting your brain know that the anxiety that it fuels you is what you want more of. And so when you think about that you're inviting it, that you want more of, you have to shut it down and learn how to turn it off. And learning how to turn it off takes either confronting the pattern where it got started, who it started with, how do you honor their voices creating chaos for you in your day-to-day basis. Again, a previous experience could have been a previous experience in work, could have been previous experience in a relationship, or with a parent or guardian when you were growing up. But the residue, unresolved, untapped, unidentified, will continue to play its role as long as you honor the voice of what is being silent. But once you confront whatever that is, you will be able to lead from the front and understand how it is that you're leading doesn't have to have the capacity where you're inviting anxiety into the playground and not allowing anxiety to keep its grip on you. Because the word anxiety, and please don't hear me as far as me trying to diagnose a situation, that's not the intentionality. But the intentionality is to understand that the way life is, the way that we multitask, the way that we function in this world with so many things coming at us at any given time is creating an imbalance. And that imbalance sometimes gets conveyed into the workplace on how it is that we show up, into when we get the promotion, when we get the opportunity that we have been working so hard for. It's going to test the theory. Are you sure that you're ready to be here? And if you have any question about your ability to be here, then the distraction is going to live. But once you develop that confidence and that ability to understand that you don't necessarily have to prove and be perfect or absolutely right in every answer, everything that's thrown your way, but you do need to show the confidence. You do need to show capability and to break up with the idea that perfection is the right way. Because when perfection and anxiety are playing with you on a day-to-day basis, you are given the authority of your voice and your skill set to someone else, because someone else is now reading the room and reading your energy and trying to determine, are you the best fit for working with them in the project, the promotion, the skill set, whatever it is that you bring to the table. So opportunity for advancement is always present, but you definitely have to break up with perfection. Now, in breaking up with perfection, you have to realize that perfection is a cousin to anxiety. So when you want things to be absolutely perfect, pretty much sometimes when you're preparing for something, you know the certain questions that you want to answer. You understand what the outcomes of the conversation that you would like it to be. Pretty much have a scale of how it is that you can do that, and feel comfortable in knowing that if you don't have the answer now, it doesn't mean that you failed. It means that you need additional time to prepare. And how it is that you shape that response in the conference room, during a phone call, during this opportunity that's so much going to be a game changer for you, is understanding where is the source of the playground in my mind that is causing me to second guess and not understand why this always shows up for every time I'm about to level up in the greatest and biggest way. And being able to understand that that playground has a hold on you that grips you, your confidence level. You already have what it is that you need. You got invited to the network. You got invited to share your ideas. You were invited or offered the promotion that you have been working for. Now you're on the other side. Now it's time to play the game and understand how it is that you need to show up. This is not the time to have a scratch. But if you have a scratch, there's ways to recover and not totally going inward and tearing yourself up, but being able to execute how it is that you navigate and giving grace to understanding how it is that you can correct the situation, provide the answer, give them the resources that they need so that you still win in this aspect of being in the conference room, but that you also win for yourself, that you are not breaking up and dancing with anxiety and perfectionism in any particular way. So that's what I would like to leave you with today, but I would like to open it up. Something I, figure I need to do now is offer it up so you can ask any questions or anything that resonated with you. I see a couple comments that I did respond to throughout the conversation, but what thoughts or things that you might need a little bit more clarity on as we have a couple minutes, because when I come in on Tuesday mornings, my goal is to give you some nuggets, give you some things to consider, but then also give you the the toolkit that you need to kind of walk away with. And I want to make sure that when you take out the time to join me for a couple minutes in your cup of coffee or tea, that as you grab these nuggets, that you're able to hopefully execute and operate and be able to exist with them, moving forward. If you find that anxiety is something that you've been dancing with and having challenges with in different ways throughout your life. Again, not about the diagnosis, but understanding how behavior and your actions consistently influence your success. Behavior has the function of two things. It's either to get something or to avoid something. And if you find or fuel your energy that you haven't done something successfully, then you'll try to avoid it at all costs. But that's not necessarily living life on your own terms and in the space that you should exist. So what I want to invite you that if, other than the Tuesday nuggets, is that I do have a group getting ready to start for anxiety wellness on June the 6th, that if you want to be able to get in front of or understand what's underneath your anxiety, this is a strategic group that kind of really looks at peeling back the layers and understanding what is thriving or feeds into your anxiety that helps you shift from being productive to unproductive, or from getting the ideas that you would benefit from, and making sure that you are clear on how it is that you move forward. So that is a resource that I can also offer to you. So perfectionism is definitely related to anxiety. Like I said, they're kissing cousins. The whole idea of needing to be absolutely correct, the whole idea of, that if you are wrong or that you don't do it in this strategic way that's consistent and in the format for somebody else, you're your own unique footprint. So what works for somebody else and what works for you is going to look dramatically different. So in thinking about what looks dramatically different for you, you guys get to the same outcome. However, you have to be able to do the work the way that it works best for you. And if you're trying to conform to a process that doesn't serve you, then you're definitely functioning in anxiety, because you're trying to take who you are in your natural state and place it into something that doesn't necessarily fit you. And in doing that, that conversation, everything about that consumes more time than the preparation needed for the meeting, then you are operating from an anxiety standpoint. So I see some more questions. Let me get some more questions. So a way to silence the voice in your head. A way to silence the voice in your head is to give it the voice give it the space, and identify who it is. So things that have occurred that sends you a message that's opposite of what you want to hear, process it. Like, you have to be able to confront it. I often say, give it a name. So give it a name in the essence that now you can have a conversation. So say if my thing's name was Liza. Liza, what is it that we need to talk about? Liza, what is it? So I hear you. I heard you say that I need to prepare for this way, or I heard you give the direction that I need to go that way. However, this is the best way that it needs to go. And begin to have a conversation with what is becoming silent, but being able to redirect and disrupt your path. You are the disruptor as a leader. So you have the opportunity to disrupt what is creating the silence or what is creating that distraction. But the thing first is that you have to identify it so that it doesn't just stay in your head. As long as it stays in your head, it's that chaos that it's that chaos that distracts you and takes you off key. So if it's silent, make it loud, give it its space, give it its empty chair, have a cup of coffee with it, and be like, okay, well, let's talk. You want to talk? You want to talk about stuff that's not necessarily on point, or that I feel like is not, let me see what I'm not learning. Let me see what it is that I may have missed the mark. So like, directly confront it. So as long as you confront it, it doesn't have space to be silent. It's almost like you're no longer the secret keeper to the disruption that it has power over you. You begin to release that power and say, I got you. We got you, but we're not going that way. Because now you can walk and activate with conviction and moving forward. I love how you say that we're supposed to be here. And I think that is important to acknowledge yourself to help the change of feeling the cycle. Change your thinking and feeling of the cycle. Definitely. Like, if you were invited, if you are in that space, it's no mistake that you were invited there. And yes, it's a call for you to now show up unapologetically. But remember that silence of that voice, you have to be clear and making sure that it's not silent. There's no silence in excellence. There's no silence in not having that clarity that you need to move forward. So it's like, you can't be silent. I'm not saying going and knocking down the walls and yelling and screaming, but there's a way to command the audience and to command your presence that people know that what you know is what they need. And what they need is understanding what's behind the curtain. Like, what's behind the curtain, how can they give it voice, and being able to do the work so that therefore whatever that is that's creating the silence is not necessarily having power over them moving forward. So good morning, Net. I see that you have stepped into the building. You have to do the work to get the results that you want, the inner work for the outer transformation. Definitely. And the thing about it is that work is not easy. So definitely you will want to possibly consider having some resource that is walking with you side by side to help you peel back those layers, and so that you can understand what is it that what is the work that I need to do, and who is it that I need to help me get it. So the next question I see is, how can you find ways to explain to your family and friends about your anxiety without fearing of being judged? The first thing is, you don't have to explain to them. You can explain to them from the behavior standpoint. When people hear the word anxiety, some people automatically think excuse. When they hear that you have any diagnosis, health, otherwise, whatever, they automatically assume that it's an excuse. So when they think of it as being an excuse that you're trying to avoid something, it's better to get the clarity around how it is that they can understand what it is that you need differently. And like, when anxiety shows up, explain to them the triggers or the things that they say or the things that they do from a positive standpoint, but letting them know that it doesn't do our conversation well. And then being strong enough, again, we talked about silence. being strong enough in your space and authority to know that if they're saying something that is creating your anxiety, to be able to walk away, to be able to say, we need to end this phone conversation, or to end this conversation if we're in person at this particular time, because it's not serving me well. We may need to come back to it when I can articulate in a different way, but right now we can't have this conversation. The judgment comes from the fact that people don't understand what the behavior is, or what the influence, or that it even matters. But then also, if I can say this directly to you, Miss Icy Lee, you have just leveled up and obtained a different level of education and degree. So therefore, some of the things that served you before, you have to begin to separate what your lower self is versus who your higher self is. And in doing that, it is a journey and it is a process. So it's going to take the work of being a disruptor and educating people from what it is that you desire in your space and desire in your voice, to begin to network and live in a different, like live differently, unapologetically, and not feeling that you have to serve them in that way. These questions are great. I'm so glad I opened it up to questions. Thank you so much. And thank you, Net, for the all right with the Tuesday coffee, teas, and chats. My goal is to make sure, absolutely, Icy Lee, my goal is to make sure that you definitely leave with some nuggets, but then also knowing that, again, like we talked about, creating that silence of the things that are not serving you well sometimes takes work. And in it taking work, you have to be able to say, okay, I deserve better, and I deserve that. I don't want to be passed over. I don't want to be ignored. I don't want the silence to have more influence and power over me than anything else. So it's like, how do you necessarily do that? Well, I'm here, right here, as a leadership strategist, able to help you navigate through those uncomfortable waters, those things that you're not quite seeing, their barriers and their blind spots that recreate. So it's not every job that you go to, it's not every relationship that you're in, it's not everything external. Sometimes it's an inside job to make sure that your transformation that you desire in your leadership role is going to serve you in the most optimal way possible. So if you think that might serve you, then I definitely would suggest that you either catch the free case study that I have with workwithmarymay.com and see how it is that I have helped other women in leadership be able to level up their career, and understanding what are some of those barriers and blind spots that are getting in their way from the leadership platform and however it is that they serve. And I know sometimes people hear the word leadership and they think, oh, I'm not a leader in my role, I'm not a this. Everybody has a footprint in being a leader. So never take away the opportunity and influence that that you have in recognizing that. So I'm being asked to share what I have coming up in June. What I have coming up in June, that starts June the 6th, is virtually. So no matter where you are, you're able to identify and engage. Is a 6-week workshop identifying and understanding how this anxiety that we've talked about in this conversation about you preparing for the meeting and being able to enter into the conference room or to whatever conversation that's helping you on your level up. It's a 6-week workshop that identifies what is it that thrives and feeds off of your anxiety, and being able to kind of uncover what it is, those layers that kind of get in the way. So being able to shift from you being productive to unproductive, you will definitely leave with a different understanding of where and why anxiety shows up for you in that particular way. And to get the registration form for that is the tinyurl.com/beat anxiety. And again, that is a virtual, is done virtually, and the registration is indicated on the form that you would get. So understanding how it is that anxiety is driving your decisions is really, really a game changer. And from us coming from 2020's experiences and everything that the world has been in the past couple years, whether you understood or recognized anxiety being a conflict or a disruptor in your life before then, you definitely see it now. And again, I'm not about the diagnosis. I'm about understanding the behavior so that you can be able to move forward successfully and continue to level up. So are there any more questions before we get out of your way? If there aren't, I know there is a delay, but in case people begin to fall off, I want to thank you for joining me for the Tuesday morning cup of coffee or tea with your leadership nuggets and Mary May. And I'll be here next Tuesday. I want to thank the person who shared the conversation or the topic for today, and definitely need to understand. I mean, if there's anything that you need to understand or that you're battling with as you're striving for a leader, one thing you could do is the breakthrough call is no cost to yourself. So you can get on my calendar and have this blueprint that's laying out everything that you need as you level up in your conversation. And then you could determine what's the next steps that you'll do, moving from there. But then the other part is we can have these conversations every Tuesday, but knowing how to implement them successfully, sometimes you might just need some additional support. But all in all, I appreciate the engagement and I appreciate the support of you all to this conversation. And I look forward to seeing you out here in these internet streets, as well as the opportunity to serve you next Tuesday. So take care, and I look forward to serving you soon. Have a wonderful day.